Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Vishnu Buddhale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Prachadane Nirvashesha Shunyavani Pastatadesha Tarane Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasri Gaur Bhaktivinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 16, verse 33 and 34, I guess it is. No, 32 and 33. Translation. Lakshmiji, the goddess of fortune, whose glance of grace was sought by demigods like Brahma, and for whom they surrendered many a day unto the personality of Godhead, gave up her own abode in the forest of lotus flowers and engaged herself in the service of the lotus feet of the Lord. I was endowed with specific powers to supersede the fortune of all the three planetary systems by being decorated with the impressions of the flag, thunderbolt, elephant driving rod, and lotus flower, which are signs of the lotus feet of the Lord. But at the end, when I felt I was so fortunate, the Lord left me. Purport: the beauty and opulence of the world can be enhanced by the grace of the Lord and not by any man-made planning. When the Lord, Sri Krishna, was present on this earth, the impressions of the special signs of his lotus feet were stamped on the dust. And as a result of this specific grace, the whole earth was made as perfect as possible. In other words, the rivers, the seas, the forests, the hills, and the mines, which are the supplying agents for the necessities of men and animals, are fully discharging their respective duties. Therefore, the riches of the world surpassed all the riches of all other planets in the three planetary systems of the universe. One should therefore ask that the grace of the Lord always be present on earth, so that we may be favored with his causeless mercy and be happy, having all necessities of life. One may ask how we can detain the Supreme Lord on this earth after his mission is fulfilled and he has left this earth for his own abode. The answer is that there is no need to detain the Lord. The Lord, being omnipresent, can be present with us if we want him at all. By his omnipresence, he can always be with us if we are attached to his devotional service by hearing, chanting, remembering, etc. There is nothing in the world with which the Lord is disconnected. The only thing we must learn is to excavate the source of connection and thus be linked with him by offenseless service. We can be connected with him by the transcendental sound representation of the Lord. The holy name of the Lord and the Lord himself are identical, and one who chants the holy name of the Lord is, in an offenseless manner, can at once realize that the Lord is present before him. Even by the vibration of radio sound, we can partially realize sound relatively, but by resounding the sound of transcendence, we can verily feel the presence of the Lord. In this age, when everything is polluted by the contamination of Kali, it is instructed in the scriptures and preached by Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that by chanting the holy name of the Lord, we can at once be free from contamination and gradually rise to the status of transcendence and go back to Godhead. The offenseless chanter of the holy name of the Lord is as auspicious as the Lord himself, and the movement of the pure devotees of the Lord all over the world can at once change the troublesome face of the world. Only by the propagation of the chanting of the holy name of the Lord can we be immune from all effects of the age of Kali. Translation. Lakshmiji, the goddess of fortune, whose glance of grace was sought by demigods like Brahma, and for whom they surrendered many a day unto the Supreme Person, the personality of Godhead, gave up her own abode in the forest of lotus flowers and engaged herself in the service of the lotus feet of the Lord. I was endowed with specific powers to supersede the fortune of all the three planetary systems by being decorated with the impressions of the flag, thunderbolt, elephant driving rod, and lotus flower, which are signs on the lotus feet of the Lord. But at the end, when I felt I was so fortunate, the Lord left me. So the earth is here describing the at once the great fortune of having the Lord on earth, and also the great misfortune when Krishna disappeared. This, of course, related to the reason why the cow is lamenting. So ultimately, because Krishna has departed, the cow and the earth must lament. So in the first part of this, or the first verse we can say, is to glorify the good fortune of being able to associate with the Lord. So it is done by showing how the Devatas all strive to get the glance of Lakshmi. Of course, we can say that one reason is material, that is, Lakshmi is the giver of wealth, and everybody wants wealth. So therefore, even the Devatas will approach Lakshmi for wealth. Of course, they can only do so by also surrendering to the Lord. So here it says Bhagavat Prapanna. Brahma and others, they want the glance of Lakshmi, but to get that glance, they also have to surrender unto the Lord. So after surrendering to the Lord, then they get the glance of Lakshmi, then they get their money. So Lakshmi is sought after by all the Devatas. But Lakshmi gave up her place in Vaikuntha and began worshipping the feet of Krishna. So though everybody is striving to get the mercy of Lakshmi, Lakshmi herself is worshipping Krishna. Not just Vishnu, that's expected because Lakshmi is the wife of Vishnu, but she is worshipping Krishna's lotus feet. And what are those feet? Those feet are, they make impressions on the earth. So though Lakshmi is worshipping those feet, the earth has the great fortune of getting those feet. So therefore the earth is most fortunate because even Lakshmi is striving for those feet. And the earth gets the direct touch of Krishna's feet. Therefore, the earth must feel very, very, very fortunate because earth is receiving the greatest benediction possible. So the normal footprint touches the earth and makes some impression, but Krishna himself, all of his features are very special. So Krishna has special eyes, lotus eyes. He has a special smile. He has special hair, special complexion, special dress, and all of the limbs of his body are very, very special. He's described in terms of moons, the different moons on his body because they're all so beautiful. And even the footprints are very beautiful. So not just the feet, but the prints on the feet are very, very attractive. And in fact, in some scriptures, all of the various markings on Krishna's left foot and his right foot, on his right hand and his left hand are described. Here it mentions a few of them. He has a lotus on his foot. He has a thunderbolt on his foot. He has an elephant goad on his foot. He has a flag. So these are some of the signs. So Supreme Lord is always auspicious with auspicious marks, but then his toes or his feet and his hands are marked with special good luck symbols. So we have the science of hand reading, and in the hand reading you look at the various lines and the symbols on the hand. So that was current in ancient times and also at the present time. And from that you can see your good fortune, your bad fortune, or whatever. So it's all a bunch of lines. But some of those lines form into little forms, little images. That's very rare, of course. Usually they're just a bunch of lines, but sometimes they'll form into images. So we get a lotus. The various lines on the hand make a lotus, so that's considered very auspicious. Or thunderbolt, or an elephant goat, or a flag, or a palace, etc. So there's various auspicious markings, as opposed to inauspicious signs. Of course, inauspicious signs usually means that the lines are all irregular, weak, cracked, wiggly, broken, etc. And they don't have much of a good pattern at all. But when they form into these objects, recognizable objects, then these particular objects are considered to be very auspicious to have on the hand. So rarely a person will have these signs. He may have maybe a lotus on his palm or his foot, or some other flag on his hand or his foot. So that's considered lucky. But to have all the signs there, that is very remarkable. Nobody has all those signs on his hands and his feet. But Krishna had all these wonderful signs on his feet. So this is a symptom of his exalted personality, which is natural because he's Supreme Lord. So he is wonderful in all ways. So he's endowed with all of these remarkable features. Sometimes they even have pictures of his feet, and they'll put all those symbols on according to scripture where each symbol will go. And then they will worship those feet, just like we worship a murti of the Lord. They'll worship the feet of the Lord with the symbols on it. So the very, very auspicious if the Lord has those marks. So when the Lord walks on the earth as Krishna with these auspicious symbols, then the earth picks up those marks. The imprints are there all over the earth of Krishna's wonderful feet with those auspicious marks on it. So this is a great privilege for the earth. This is their special propensity to pick up the footmarks of Krishna and to give Krishna a place of support. So earth has a great privilege from the Supreme Lord. Of course, it also is significant because she gets the touch of the lotus feet of the Lord, which means he recognizes her surrender. We see that Kaliya was considered very fortunate because Krishna danced on his hoods. And marked his hoods with his footprints like that. Of course, this was a little rough because he was dancing and banging down his heads and punishing him. Nevertheless, he got the blessing of getting the marks of Krishna on his hoods, so that was considered a great blessing for him. And ultimately, Kaliya surrendered. So here the earth is a devotee of the Lord and willingly serving the Lord, and Krishna at all times is walking over her surface and giving great blessings by walking everywhere. So the earth felt very, very fortunate getting this mercy of the Supreme Lord. This is her service, one of her services to the Supreme Lord. So it's very special because those feet are sought by Lakshmi, who's sought by all the devatas. And she's getting the privilege of getting the footprints of the Supreme Lord. So that's her good fortune. Then Krishna disappears, and no more footprints, no more touch of Krishna's foot on her. So this is a cause of great lamentation for the earth. Just as the gopis feel separation from Krishna when he leaves or when he goes to Mathura or whatever. So when Krishna leaves the planet, then many people will grieve in separation. And so the earth is included in this. She got the constant association of the Lord because wherever the Lord went, he was stepping on the earth. And then suddenly he disappears. So then she's deprived of that contact with Krishna. So she must suffer. But as Prabhupada says in the purport, we cannot prevent the Lord from disappearing. We cannot detain him. We cannot stop him. He has his own plan. He comes with a certain purpose, then he disappears. In the case of Krishna, he stayed 125 years. In the case of some forms, they may last a long time, such as the Manvantara avatars like Vamanadev. He stays for the whole of the Vaivasvata Manvantara period, 71 yuga cycles. He's standing there, Vamanadev. So the Manvantara avatar stays for a long time, and then he will disappear also. Some of the avatars also appear for a shorter time, a very short period of time sometimes. So it's up to the Lord when he wants to come and when he wants to disappear. We cannot influence that. At least externally we cannot influence that. And that is the case even with the people of Vrindavan and the gopis. When Krishna left, they couldn't persuade him to stay. He went to Mathura, then he went to Dwarka. They told him to come back, he didn't come back. When he wanted to come back, then he came back after many years. So we cannot control the Lord. He has his own particular plan. And when he leaves, then he leaves. But in any case, for the devotees, he has a special attachment. So it may look like there is tragedy when we get separated from the Lord, but there's also good fortune. So that is explained in relation to the gopis. Krishna sent a letter to the gopis through Uddhava. Later on, he met the gopis in Kurukshetra. And then he explained to them that, yes, we are separated in this form. And at the present time, I cannot do anything because I have duties to kill, demons to kill, etc., establishing the people in Dwarka, etc. So until all the demons are killed, I cannot do anything. I have to stay apart. If I come back, the demons will see me coming back, and they'll attack Vrindavan. And they will harass all the people in Vrindavan, so I can't go back. So, how to console the gopis? So then the esoteric explanation is that though there is an appearance of separation in the earthly pastimes, in the eternal pastimes, in the spiritual world, there's no separation. So simultaneously, the gopis are separated here. If they meditate strongly enough, they can enter into the eternal pastimes, and there's no separation. So that's how they can resolve their pain of separation. So the Lord appears to disappear when he disappears from the planet, but the great devotees of the Lord, they may lament for some time, but then the Lord makes an arrangement where those devotees join the Lord in his eternal pastimes. So that's no separation. So there's a temporary feeling of separation, but the Lord will resolve the situation. He will resolve that lamentation and conflict at all times. So that is the arrangement of the Supreme Lord for the devotees. He doesn't make such an arrangement for other people, but for devotees, and then he arranges that eventually they meet him, and then they're eternally with him in the spiritual world. So that's the case here also. Though the Lord is separating, and we cannot interfere with that disappearance of the Supreme Lord, then at the same time, at the proper time, then we can meet the Lord again. The other alternative, of course, is that without having to go to the spiritual world, then we simply perform our activities of bhakti. And through those activities, then we can internally manifest the Supreme Lord. So that's what Prabhupada explains here in this last paragraph. By chanting the name of the Lord, then we contact the Supreme Lord. So though the Lord disappeared 5,000 years ago, by chanting the name of Krishna, then we get the presence of the Supreme Lord. The only drawback here is that it's according to your devotion. So the less one is advanced, the less one will feel the presence of the Lord when one chants. The more one is advanced, the more one will feel the presence of the Lord. And if one has got to prema, then when one chants, the Lord is always present. So it's a matter of one's advancement. We advance nicely, the problem is solved. If we don't advance nicely, we get a little bit of contact with the Lord, but it is, we can say, an abhas, or a shadow form. So we can, the solution is the name of the Lord, but we also have to perfect that chanting. Then we get the immediate presence of the Supreme Lord. Though that may be a little bit, you could say, discouraging for us, but nevertheless, this is the easiest process for contacting the Supreme Lord of all the different devotional processes. If we do other processes, there's no question, we will not see the Lord. If you do karma yoga or you do jnana yoga, you will not see the Lord. The Lord is not going to reveal himself. He will reveal himself only through process of bhakti. In that sense, bhakti is a rare process, and it's only through this process that we get a revelation of the Lord.
A question. This thing's dead. The battery's dead. I'm wondering about the imprints on Krishna's feet. So would you say that they're similar to, like, you were mentioning that, like, we ordinarily have like lines, and that's what they are? Are they like kind of like colored, like prints type?
Like
lines, or like
well, lines, I suppose, but of course for the Supreme Lord he could color them or make them into pictures or whatever. But the normal conception is they're like lines, just like we have lines here, but then they form into a figure like a lotus out of the various lines on this thing, or a house, or a thunderbolt like this. Of course, it's all transcendental anyway. It's similar to our footprints or handprints or whatever. Like our foot is similar, but at the same time it's also different because it's spiritual. So it's not subject to the same limitations as material hands and feet, except organs of the body. Spiritual, so therefore it's not, and they're not telling good fortune in the normal sense, because we can interpret karma through our hands, but Lord hasn't got any karma. Everything is all auspicious. So it's beyond the material world, but by viewing those patterns on the Lord's feet, that's an impetus. It's called an udipana. It's a stimulus for our love, just as his flute or his color of his devotee or this complexion stimulates our love in the spiritual world. So seeing those footprints, then we get ecstasy on seeing those footprints, because it reminds us of Krishna, and we get an impetus for doing some service for him. So because it's not limited, therefore it could have any color or whatever also.
Prabhupada does mention you stand in front of the deities and clap the hands on your lines change. Is that can be taken literally, or just sort of it means your destiny changes?
Well, I don't know if there's any studies done on that technically by hand palm readers or something. They take a group of people and they clap their hands and do some devotion, it changes. But in general, yeah, it's not that your lines don't change. They do change even throughout your life if you don't do anything according to your activities or whatever, and as your age increases, then they start altering. Some line may become very strong, or a broken line may connect together, or a connected line may break in the middle or something like this. So that's bound to happen in normal life itself, that they will change. So the idea is by performing bhakti or chanting the holy name, we destroy karma, so that all the bad lines and the bad indications of sickness and accident and death and whatever, they should change by that process. I don't know if anyone's done that, but we could say that it could happen. They even have some things they do, different mudras of the hands. They say this will also change your, do different mudras. It will also change your configuration on your hands, make the lifeline longer or whatever like that.
Maharaj, sometimes we're hearing about this about this separation. It seems that the devotees experience Krishna even more in one sense.
They have more intense feelings, separation?
Well, the holy names and the Krishnas appear in so many ways. The deed is not different than Krishna. His name is not different. So
yeah.
In one sense, we don't seem to be in this separation.
Yeah.
So, what is the separation?
Well, though in separation, okay, even the gopis, they could chant the name of the Lord or whatever, or meditate on Him. And actually, Krishna also tells them, actually, I'm everywhere, so you can sit down and meditate, and I will be out there also. But then they reject that. This is not good. We don't want to be yogis. We want you personally. So, of course, in one sense, yes. And also there's an explanation that when Krishna left, the only way they maintained themselves is because internally Krishna would appear to them. When they would think of Krishna, that He would appear internally, and they would get some satisfaction from that. Still, they wanted that external Krishna where He was there and they could speak to Him and they could do service to Him directly. So there's a particular satisfaction in the direct appearance of the Lord. It's called the sakshatkar, the meeting of the Lord directly. So when that takes place, the devotee gets an extra sort of, bliss. Of course, he just doesn't want to meet Him, but he gets that vision of Him, and then he begins to serve Him in that direct appearance. So he actually engages in service to Him at that point. Now, of course, we can do internal service and like that as devotees in the material world do when they're in prema or whatever. But nevertheless, that idea of having directly Krishna in front of you and doing the service is some aspiration for all the devotees. So we can, in separation, there is appearance of the Lord, but then they like to directly meet the Lord. But on the highest level again, these things become a little confusing because even when they meet the Lord directly, they start feeling separation. And they say, where's Krishna? Where's Krishna? Even when He's directly in front of them. So that's out of ecstasy, then Krishna disappears even sometimes, even though He's there. But in their ecstasy, they can't see Him suddenly. Or in separation, suddenly, because of the intensity of the separation, it's like Krishna is actually there, and they get greater bliss than when Krishna is even there. So yeah, in separation, sometimes that happens also. But it's some peculiar nature of separation in the spiritual world that it can invoke even a greater bliss within that than directly meeting Krishna. So in that sense, they're equal, we can say, or even superior. And maybe that's one reason why we glorify the Vipralambha as the greatest, because in that separation there's also the greatest bliss. Because they do meet Krishna, and there then the bliss is more satisfying.
You mentioned probably classes of Ashvara Govardhana. And so I've heard also the Vipralambha Govardhana as well.
Oh, Vipralambha, I never heard of that. Oh, I see. I haven't heard about that one. But they're always in separation? I see. I don't know about that. Okay. Yeah. Well, generally they have different types of separation. There's a separation before meeting called Purvaraga, and then like the gopis before they actually talk to Krishna, they were thinking glorifying Him, but they never. Then when the Rasa Leela happened, they actually were with Him, and they express their love. So then the Purvaraga is finished, and they enter in direct relationship, and then they have the separation after that when you get separated for a little while. And then like when Krishna leaves the Rasa Leela and goes somewhere, then there's a separation. When He goes home in the morning, there's separation. And then there's the long separation when He goes to Mathura or something like that. And then there's the psychological separation. When Krishna is there, you feel you're separated from Him. That's also there. So they define those separations, but as far as an actual loka like that, I haven't heard about that, or a special dhamma for that.
So much, when we hear that Krishna in night time he plays his flute and the gopis drop everything and go to him, so it's described in different ways that they're looking after the husband's children, they just drop everything and go, despite the protestations of the family relatives.
Yeah.
Other places that describe that their external body stays there, but they go in their spiritual body.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering, is it both one or the other, or?
Well, it's explained that when Parikshit asked this question, how is it possible they could do this? And then Sukadeva Goswami says that nobody in Vrindavan had any hatred of Krishna. Though externally we would say, well, that if the husbands were there and their wives run off to Krishna, all they could do was criticize Krishna. But nobody criticized Krishna. So then for that, then he says, actually, though we have these descriptions where they prevented them, etc., it looks as if that they were satisfied because they saw their wives there again, and they didn't leave. Of course, they did leave. But that the wives which were there were not the real wives; they were Maya wives made by Krishna. So those are the wives that the husbands were attached to, and then the actual gopis, they were the ones that left and went to Krishna. So in that way, we cannot attribute any fault to the gopis that they were touched by another person like the husband, because they weren't actually they were Maya ladies at that time.
When you're talking about separation, we also hearing devotees who are living outside, they can't come and see the deities, so they're feeling so much separation, even though they have photos at home. It's not the same when devotees, because we kind of maybe take it for granted because we've seen the deity every day, but it's so painful for them that they can't come to the temple. And one devotee actually she came and she just started crying when she saw the deity. My question is, when we see the deities, they reciprocate with us differently. Sometimes one devotee may say, oh, Krishna is looking very serious, or Krishna is looking sad. And then I heard one lecture where a devotee was asking Prabhupada, do you think Krishna is happy? And Prabhupada said, why are you asking me? You are the pujari. You should know how Krishna feels. So when we are serving the Lord, then we can't claim that we know how Krishna feels. So how is that? Because even Vidavantu was giving a lecture and was saying Radha Raman, you see sometimes his teeth are manifest, you see some photos where you can see his teeth, and some photos can't.
Well, that was photoshopped, I think.
How is that?
In any case, the devotees have their own level of advancement. And according to that, then the more advanced they are, the more they can appreciate the reciprocation with Krishna. And in all cases, Krishna reciprocates with every devotee. But the more one advances, then the more the reciprocation there is there. So as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, as you surrender unto me, I respond accordingly. So Krishna reveals himself more and more as the devotee advances. So therefore the more advanced devotee will appreciate the mood of Krishna. He can understand it better. You can't do it perfectly, so therefore we say the perfect stage, for instance, in chanting is when you chant and it's not different from Krishna directly. It is Krishna, like that. So similarly, when they say the deity, it is Krishna. It's not a deity form at all. So it's spontaneously they see Krishna. So that's on the highest level. And at that stage, any interaction is perfect. So before that, it's more or less up to the level of the person, how much they can appreciate and realize the response of Krishna. Nevertheless, it's there. And it may be different for each devotee, because each devotee has a different relationship with the Lord. So Krishna can simultaneously respond differently to different persons. When he was holding up Govardhana Hill, there were elders there in Vatsalya Rasa, and they were thinking, oh, Krishna's, we got to help him because he's getting tired holding up this mountain for this long. So they got their sticks and they were trying to hold up the hill for him. But then the friends were joking with Krishna all the time. Krishna could do anything, we know him, so they were just joking with Krishna. And Krishna responded to them also. And then the gopis, this is just before the Rasa Leela, 1 year before the Rasa Leela, so they were developing their love a little bit for Krishna. They're looking at Krishna with great eyes of love, and Krishna was kind of responding to them also. So each group of different types of devotees, they saw Krishna differently, and Krishna responded to them differently, simultaneously. So that's the nature of Krishna. He can respond to all the different types of devotees in different ways, and according to their advancement also.
One when I was in Govardhana years ago in Florence, and that was the grandmother who was there, they call him Pastor Chaitanya. And they can show you photos when he was first in school, and you see him, and I saw him very chubby. So it seems like Krishna is very, very ill. He's feeling like a pastor and
he gets fatter.
And instances when clothes don't fit anymore.
Well, yeah, anything is possible. We see that even in Gopal Bhatta had a Shalagram Shila turned into the form of Radharaman, so anything is possible for the Supreme Lord, so we should never take the deity casually, because they can do different things. Scientifically, we don't know how it happens, but nevertheless, they're remarkable, and they can respond to the devotees in different ways. Okay, Hare Krishna.